going on, everybody? This is, of course, Rick Del Santo. You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Wire podcast. I've got a very special guest with me here today, pro wrestling legend, Princess Victoria. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I want to thank you for taking the time and sitting here with me today.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. That it's every time I do a podcast, it seems like the book sales go up. Everything goes up. So you guys are actually helping me make money.
That's great. That's great. That's all it's about. And I haven't gotten the book yet. I plan on it because I just actually discovered that there was a book. So I'm looking
Well,
forward to reading that. You want to tell people, start a little bit of talking about your book?
it's called Princess Vince's. It's called Princess Victoria: A Tale of Tears, Triumphs, and Turnbuckles. I want to warn everybody that this goes from my childhood uh, to the first part of me wrestling. The first part of the book is how I survived a very, very abusive childhood, and I didn't pull any punches. I they were all potatoes, and the reason I wrote it that way and wrote the hard truth is because there's too many people out there that are killing themselves because they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And if I could go from a childhood like that to where I got to in wrestling, I'm hoping that it will give them the hope that I finally got, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, it's you had a great life after that, right? I mean, you made it all the way up here
Oh
now.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
What's funny is I ran away from home when I was 14. It was a live or die situation. My stepfather had went to prison, and my mother turned out to be just as physically abusive as he was. And uh, when I moved to Portland, I got my first apartment when I was 14.
Oh wow.
Uh, when I ran away, when I first got to Portland, I was sleeping at the place they called the Wall, and it was a bunch of us kids out there. And it depended on which way the wind was blowing as to what side of the wall you slept on. And we all took care of each other. Like there was a Denny's in the park that this wall is in, and we'd all, of course, go panhandling, put our money together, buy enough food for everybody. We
Hmm.
took care of each other. And then I got a job at Denny's because I got some false ID. And I've been working at Denny's for about a year, and I started going to the matches in Portland. And I had I had quit one Saturday morning. I had quit my job at Denny's. The district manager just he aggravated me to say the least. He he started yelling at me in the center aisle where the coffee pots were, where the whole restaurant was around you. And I said, and I'm sitting there, I got two plates in each hand, getting ready to go drop them down. And when he finally drew a breath, I said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you hold this? Can you hold this, and this?" And then I proceeded to tell him where he could shove his job. And I walked out and I went to the matches that night, and I had gotten to know Sherry and Sandy Barr quite well in a few of the matches, the wrestlers. And uh, this, I asked Sandy, I said, "Do you have a job?" Because I always took care of myself. I always had a job. Starting at 10 years old, my
Right.
grandmother had me out in the strawberry fields. And he said, "Yeah, you can help us clean up tonight and break down the ring." And I'm standing there in a dress, in stiletto heels, the candies. I don't know if anybody remembers the candies, but they were highly popular. And I said, "Well, I can't do it tonight." He said, "Good, be back at 7 o'clock in the morning." And I started working for Sandy. And when you work for Sandy, there is no telling what you're going to learn. I learned how to run a printing press. I learned how to burn plates for that printing press, and it was the old round kind with
Hmm.
the 5 foot uh, print printouts.
Yep.
I learned how to develop uh, pictures from negatives. We had a dark room. Uh, Took pictures, wrote things for the program, laid tile in his house, and then one day he came up to me and he said, "Look, I don't know if you know it or not, but I run a school, a wrestling school." I said, "Okay." He said, "I've got this girl who wants to train, but I can't train her with the guys. I need a body." And we went on to discuss, basically what was going to be there, what I was going to do. And I showed up at training on Saturday morning, and I proceeded to be the body for her. And about 3 months later, I realized that she wasn't coming anymore. And she hadn't come in about 2 months. She had not come to training in about 2 months. And then I realized what Sandy had done, and I already had, the taste. I was already hooked. And that's how that Sandy literally tricked me into becoming a professional wrestler.
What was it, 79, 80? Was that
Uh,
around?
78, 79.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, and somewhere in all of this, Velvet showed up. And I was living at a Wino Motel on one side of Portland, and the Chautauqua Arena was on the other side of Portland. So I had to take public access buses to training.
Hmm.
And one day, Velvet and I are training, and all the guys had dropped out. It was literally down to me and Velvet. And I say that with pride. And Sandy told me, he says, uh, when you get back to your place, I want you to pack everything up. I want you to have it downstairs and be ready to go. And I went, "What?" He said, "You're coming to my house to live. I'm tired of you being late for everything because of public transportation." And then, and Velvet was already living with Sandy because she was from Canada.
Right.
And, and then, and that was, that's another thing is, with Velvet and I living at Sandy's, we learned how to clean pools, lay brick, all this stuff. Because Sandy always had some crazy thing going on. And soon learned that from Friday night to Sunday evening, nobody slept. There were too many things to do and not enough people. Um, but that's how I met Velvet, and we shared a room. And I'm sure you know who Art Barr and Sean, Art and Jesse and Sean.
Yep.
I chased those two little snots, not Jesse. He wasn't little at the time. Those two little snots, Art and Sean. I chased them out of Velvet and I's bedroom. If it was once, it was 100 times. And those little snots would go running, laughing, because I caught them in a certain drawer.
Of course, you talk about Art Barr, legendary, professional wrestler, and
Didn't he
oh,
do?
geez.
He did. Did he do
Beetlejuice, the
Beetlejuice?
juice. Yeah, he did Beetlejuice in Mexico, which when he went to WCW, he was the juicer. Basically a kind of like a alteration of the gimmick, sort of. And Jesse Barr was Jimmy Jack Funk in WWF as well,
That's
and
right. That's right.
yeah, and continued the gimmick when he went back to World Class in the later '80s as
Well,
well. Yeah,
I'll I'll tell you what. I feel sorry for those boys because they were Sandy's sons,
yeah,
and I know that when Velvet, one of the first trainings I showed up to, I noticed there was a trash can on all four sides of the ring. And then I figured out it wasn't if you're going to throw up, it's when you're going to throw up and if you're going to hit the garbage can. That's how hard Sandy trained us. It's a lost art these days with trainers because
right,
it you had to prove to the trainer that this is what you really wanted, and Sandy did everything that he could to make you quit because I mean, no broken bones or anything like that, but when you do 50 drop kicks in a 2 hour period, when you finally get up for the last one, you're thanking God for it. And that's the way we were trained. And cute story. And to this day, I swear that all the marbles stole this theme from me and Velvet. And Sandy would wake us up in the morning. He'd have a glass of fresh squeezed oranges. And by fresh squeezed, I mean he had the oranges there. And we drank the orange juice, warm up at the pool a little bit, you know, stretching and all that. And then we were to run. And it started out walk a block, jog a block, run a block, jog a block, walk a block. And we did 5 miles. Well, one morning, well, as we were running, I had put my cigarettes, hid them from Sandy, or I thought I did. And we found this bench off the main drag where we were running. I believe it was Chautauqua Boulevard, I believe. No, it was Lombard Street. And so Velvet and I started, taking a little break on this bench all the time. And one day we're sitting there, and I was smoking, Velvet was smoking, and out of the blue you hear, "That don't look like no running to me." And if I could have swallowed that cigarette, I would have done it. After, after that, when we got caught, Sandy would then, just like on all the marbles, Sandy would then drive the car behind us as we did our cardi as we ran. We
right.
were never left alone to run after that. But
That's good.
if I could have crawled into my own pocket at that moment, I would have.
Yeah. So what was it like working out there? You worked obviously you ended up working there for Portland Wrestling under him, correct? And him and Don Owen.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. We start now. Velvet and I believe it was between a 6 and 9 month period that we trained,
Okay.
and before we had our first match. And our first match, we wrestled in Idaho for Ed Moretti, very
Okay.
good friend of mine, wonderful man. Him and his wife, every time I see him, it's like long lost family. Um, we wrestled there, and Sandy on our first match, Sandy had always wanted me to, always wanted me to jump over the top rope. I didn't like it. Didn't feel right for me, and I did it, 100 times in training, but when you get out there and the folks are in the crowd, it's a whole different story. And I went out to the ring, and I was so nervous, first match in front of people, jitters. and my palms were sweating. And I went to jump over the ring and I pulled a Lanny Poffo. You know, when he jumped over the ring and he'd let his 2 feet be on the rope and he'd have his elbow laying on the turnbuckle?
Right. Right.
That
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened to me, only I didn't do it on purpose. And I'm sitting up there trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of this without falling on my face? Well, I figured it out. Then we went and wrestled for Don. Well, wrestled for the, you know, awesome Elton Owens, uh, and Don Owens, and Sandy, of course, was the referee. And I tell everybody that Velvet and I were blessed. We came up in the heyday of Portland wrestling. You
Mhm.
know, we came up with Buddy Rose, Ed Wiskowski, Roddy Piper, Stan Stasiak, Dutch Savage, Tommy Rogers, the Sheep Herders, and I can keep going. Um, and I didn't know it at that time. In fact, I didn't figure it out until about a year ago at the Chautauqua Sports Arena. The ring is down here.
Right.
There's a place we call the Crow's Nest, which, if you ever been to a seriously redneck bar and seen the chicken wire around the band so you couldn't hit them with a beer, that's what it looked like on a small scale. And
Right.
that's where all the interviews were done. Well, when you were in the ring and the light was shining, you could not see the crow's nest. And Sandy had started bringing people in to train with Velvet and I. And I'm talking about the boys that were wrestling then, Buddy Rose, you know, Stan Stasiak, all of them. And he told us, the reason why I want you to do this is, I don't care if you were trained by the same trainer like you two are trained by me. You two are not going to wrestle the same. And I want you to get used to being with a different style of people in the ring. And I went to I went up to Georgia, uh, and I was going up there to do the territories, Vice TV, the territories, and just like we did when we were on the road, you get your key to your room, you drop your bag, you go downstairs to the restaurant or the bar, because that's where everybody was. And I was about 30, 20 to 30 feet away from the table that Bret Hart and Bobby Bass and Luke Williams, the sheep herder, was at. And he stood up and came walking towards me and gave me the biggest daddy bear hug you could ever ask for. I mean, it was straight daddy, nothing like, nothing perverted. He gave me this big hug. And then he sat down and he started telling Bret and Bobby about how the boys used to be in the crow's nest watching us train. He said, let me tell you what, these girls earned their stripes. I had no idea the man even knew my name, much less had watched me wrestle. And I'm sitting there, and he's telling the boys, Bobby and Bret, all these things that we did. And I'm sitting there, I'm having to fight back the tears, because, that really meant a lot to me.
Right. Yeah, and when was this? During the filming of the Territories, the Vice TV special, you said?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
This was filming of the territories. This was the one on the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
They had Lynn Denton, I think Ben Masters,
I don't. It's been a
Luke.
while since I've seen it, but I haven't. I remember Lynn Denton was definitely in it. And have you read his book?
Not
Lynn's
yet.
book. It's a very good book. I highly recommend it.
All right,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
I'll because Lynn was, he was the grappler in Portland, and Luke was one of the
Right.
sheep herders. And the sheep herders, when I was a kid, used to scare me to death.
Yeah, it's amazing that, I grew up I was watching and say, working like where they're working for the NWA and Watts and stuff like that, and they were wild and crazy, and then, went to WWF and had like kind of a goofy gimmick.
Right. Well, but anyway, we spent 2 days together.
Wow.
The night we all got there, and I got some I got some lunch or dinner actually, and I went and a couple of drinks, and I went to pay for my bill, and there was no bill. And I said, "All right, which one of you paid for my dinner?" "Oh, not me, not me, not me." Somebody paid for my dinner that night. And that's what happened just about in every territory that I was ever in. I had known all these wrestlers. I was little sister. When I came to them, I was right at 15, 16 years old, and nobody messed with me because if they did, they had to answer to the boys.
Right.
And the boys were not mad at, were not nice about it. And everywhere that I went on the road, it seemed like one of the guys that I came up with was there. And, you know, Roddy Piper was in New York. He had me follow him and Don Morocco. They wanted to make sure we were at the right motel and that we knew exactly where the venue was. And they didn't let us go into this motel alone. They came with us. And this is repeated territory to territory. I had a lot of the ladies talk about having problems with the wrestlers. I had two issues, and both of them have grown up, so I'm not going to mention their names. Everybody pulls a dumb, stupid kid once in a while. But one of them was when I was working for Bill Watts and Terry Allen was booking, and the guy pulled. What happened was we were in a business office, a huge, where they have all the meetings and corporate meetings and all that. And it was like a maze getting to the ring.
Right.
So Bill Watts asked me, or asked this person, take her to the ring. Now, this is after Terry had asked him to drive me around. And, oh, no, 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 I can't have a girl in my car. If my wife finds a long black hair, I'm in trouble. But on the way to the ring, they had called my name. We walked out the door, and he's going left, right, left, right, left, right. And then the second time they called my name, and we're still left, right, left, right. And then he stops in the middle of this set of double doors, opens them up, and he drops his drawers. And he thought that, you know, I was going to please him before I got to the ring. And I just looked at him. I said, "You know what?" I said, I'm going to do my best to whoop your ass, and I may not do it, but you're going to know I was there. Now you get me to the ring. Well, by that time they had called me three times.
Right.
That is a do not pass go. Do not collect your money for the night. Get out of my territory. And Terry was there, and Terry came in the bathroom where I was at. I was trying to clean up my face and cool off, and he come in and he just went, like this. What happened? And when I told him what happened with this person, I didn't see that person for the next 2 weeks when I was in the territory.
Wow.
And that was, that's just the way I was treated. uh Bret Hart made the comment, "Oh, you and Wendy were just one of the boys." Well, a lot of people think that, I needed this whatever to build me up, but that was probably one of two of the greatest compliments I've ever had.
Right.
Because if you're
Right.
called one of the boys, and the boys are willing to train with you, willing to take you, make sure you got all this going on, making sure you make it to the arena, that means they respect you. They
Yeah.
respect your work. They respect who you are. And like I said, I've only had two times where I had a problem in the entire time I was training in wrestling.
Right. Well, I mean, it's crazy that stuff like that happens. I mean, I'm sure it still does on occasion, but it's it gets
Well,
out there a lot now. You know.
right, well, uh, advice to the girls that this happens with, ladies, don't take it.
Right.
If
Exactly.
you've got to pick up a baseball bat, don't take it. If you've got to ask one of your brothers for help with this person, do so. Because I guarantee you, you've got a friend in that dressing room that is not going to let this go on. But
Right.
if they don't know what's happening, they can't stop it. See, we policed ourselves back in my day.
Right.
We didn't, if there was a problem in the dressing room, we handled it in the dressing room. We didn't take it to the promoter. It was settled in the dressing room. It never made it to the ring, and it never made it to the promoter. And that's how things were handled in my days. And I pray that there are women wrestlers out there that hear what I'm saying, especially the new girls, because
Right.
I was a new girl at one time,
Right.
and I know how terrifying becoming a woman wrestler is. And some guys will take advantage of that, and you just got to put your foot down. Like I said, pick up a baseball bat, pick up your boot. Do not put up with that kind of crap from anybody.
Exactly. Exactly. You ended up spending some time working for you're making some appearances for Fritz von Erich in World Class as well in Texas. What do
Yes.
you have memories of working there? Of course, you captured the NWA United States Championship from Judy Martin there in the Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth. What was it like going there and working and capturing that title against Judy Martin? Judy Martin, obviously, legendary figure in the world of professional wrestling as well.
Oh yeah, Judy's a wonderful lady, a wonderful heart, and a fantastic wrestler. And we, being from the Pacific Northwest, we had a large crowd at Chautauqua. This was
Hmm.
pre Seattle times. Uh, but I don't remember ever being at a low crowd in any territory. And I believe we were at the Superdome, I believe is what it's called, or is it Tyler? The Tyler Coliseum in Shreveport, I believe, is where I got the belt from, and it was the first time I had gotten a belt, and it was quite exciting, to be honest with you. I mean, the way the crowd cheered, and then of course I'm wrestling against Judy Martin. I mean, that's like she's like a butterfly. I had to look down to make sure that she had hit me when she dropped it. And before our first trip on the road, several people, including Moolah, had come to me and warned me. Now, Judy's going to be Judy's going to be rough on you. Judy works tough. I never had her. I never, like I said, I'd have to look down to make sure she had hit my chest. And the crowd, uh, when I took the belt, of course, the crowd roared. Uh, and the only thing I can say is thank God for wrestlers like Judy, because she is one hell of a wrestler.
Right.
I when I got to Moolah's, once again I got lucky. I came up with Judy Martin, Leilani Kai, Wendy Richter, Joyce Grable, Candy Malloy, all the Sherry Martell. I mean, Sherry Martel and I were friends before she became Sherry Martel. Everybody knows.
Right.
And when I first saw her under the manager, being a manager, I just went, "That's my girl. That's my Sherry." A lot of people, Sherry was the type of person that if we were in a snowstorm and I said I was cold, she'd literally take the jacket off of her back and hand it to you. That's how big her heart was. Very beautiful soul.
Right. Right. Wow. That's there are a lot of people say a lot of great things about her, and of course, she passed very young, and it's very sad that she passed so young because I think that she was trying to make a comeback or at least work her way back into the WWE, if I remember correctly.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Well, wasn't it? Trying to put things together. Didn't they let go of her when Randy Savage walked away?
I think she went to WCW after that, or
Uh,
maybe that was before that. Excuse me, she might have been in WCW before Randy hopped over, and
right.
yeah, and then I know that earlier 2000s that I think that she, when they started bringing a lot of the legends back and stuff like that, I think that she made a couple of appearances here and there.
Yeah. She was once again, she was the trifecta.
Right,
She could wrestle. She knew the difference between a hammerlock and a headlock, which a lot of people today don't know. And I'm not just talking about the girls, I'm talking about the guys. She was awesome on the mic. And
yes,
talk about a personality in the ring. You don't get much bigger than Sherry Martel. I put
right,
her up there where managers are concerned with Bobby Heenan. You know, uh, People can disagree if they want, but I hold both of those, and I knew both of them well.
right,
You know,
right. Um, do you, speaking of which, like going forward with, do you watch wrestling today, or have you watched wrestling? What's your opinion on the state of professional wrestling, and more importantly, women's wrestling today and how it's evolved?
well, I'll tell you a backstory.
Sure.
Um, 1987, I'm living in a house in Franklin, Virginia. Woke up late, turned my TV on, and boom, in my face is wrestling. And they were in, I believe, Kuwait, uh, wrestling for the boys, for our troops.
Right.
And kept hearing, you know, who we've got a contest coming up with three ladies. Whoever wins the contest, Triple H is playing Santa. Whoever wins the contest, gets to be Santa's little helper. And I'm watching it, and now when you say contest to me, and I'm watching wrestling, I'm thinking wrestling contest, right?
Like a match. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about a match. I figured they were going to have two girls, wrestle. The one from that one goes against this one, and whoever wins gets to be Santa's little helper. And it's here come the girls. They've got their cute little Santa, coat on, which I have no problem with. We all had our cute little jackets. And Velvet was famous for making, she could sew, so she didn't have to pay the price. The rest of us girls did. She made her, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of Velvet's, you know, gear that was, just walking to the ring, Velvet made it. But, well, shoot, I know better than that. I just pulled a wrestler. I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about women's wrestling, modern women's wrestling, the evolution of
Okay,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I was sitting down. I'm watching this. The girls come out in their short little coats.
right.
Didn't realize they had high heels on. They get in the ring. They take off their coats, and they've each got three triangles and butt floss. Now, when I'm looking at this, I'm going, WTF. And then it wasn't a wrestling match, it was a dance off.
Right. Yeah.
I almost put my foot through my DLP. I literally, that's how mad I got. And I quit watching wrestling that day because what had happened with women's wrestling, it was turned into a TNA show and it shouldn't ever happen.
Yes.
But now that new management has taken over, I have been kind of catching up like Rhea Ripley. I
Hmm.
love her.
She's amazing
She
and a
is
great
awesome.
talent. Yeah, she's very talented.
Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. She wanted to fight me. I'm running. I ain't lying. I'm running. And I've seen some of the other girls, and I'm getting very impressed. Number one, they've made the suits a little bit larger so you can't see,
Yeah.
which we've got an evolution in wrestling. In the 50s it was going from the skirt bathing suit to a one piece. Um but what I'm seeing now, at one point I was ashamed to say I was a wrestler. I did not tell my son I was a wrestler till he was 15
Oh wow.
because of what was going on.
Hmm.
But it's turning around, and I mean it's making a big quick turn, and I am liking what I'm seeing. I I
Right.
I have that's all I can say is I'm really liking what I see. I mean, when Rhea gets in the ring, I'm the little kid but ringside eating popcorn. Turns me right into a mark. And if you can
Yeah.
turn me into a mark, you have done well.
Yeah. She's one of the ones I enjoy watching quite a bit. When I watch modern wrestling, which isn't often. So, and Asuka's another one that I really enjoy watching. And there's not a whole
Yeah,
lot. I mean, I don't. And Thunder Rosa from AEW. I don't really watch a lot of AEW, but I watch her,
right.
who I'm a huge fan of as well. So
Well, whatever happened to Suma Sakai, who was wrestling for ROH?
she retired. I think last year. Um,
Did she really? I
yeah,
used to
she went
love
on a.
watching her.
So the funny thing is, well, not funny thing, but I saw her very early on in her career in the New England area. She would come here working for promoter Sheldon Goldberg and his New England
Right.
Championship Wrestling, and that's probably right before Ring of Honor became a thing, or before they started bringing women in and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
I knew of her and was very entertained by her. I thought she was very good, and yeah, I think it was last year or the year before she went on her retirement tour, and yeah, she was very, 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 very talented.
Oh, she's the one. Once again I turned on the TV,
Yeah.
and here's wrestling, and here's Suma Sakai, and of course I stopped and I started watching. Then I sat down and I started watching ROH a lot,
Yeah.
and because of the matches they had. I mean, Demolition Axe. I could not believe, you know, at his age, and everybody said you should quit by a certain age. No, you should quit when your body tells you it's time to quit.
Right.
I'm 65. I'm not getting in the ring again. I can't do it because of my neck. I made the mistake of dropping an elbow on somebody when I was on Christy Sells when I was at MLOW, and I paid for it for 3 days.
Wow.
So Well, I that's where the wrestler in me comes out. It was there, it was right. Do it. It wasn't called. It was just do it. And there's a picture of me, and you can see there the lights are on, but nobody's home.
Right. Right.
But
So
no,
yeah,
I'm.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Nope.
go ahead.
I was gonna you I was just gonna move on and ask some more questions, but if you have more to say about that subject, that's fine.
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, watching ROH, and I don't know what happened to them. I cannot find them on TV.
Well,
Um,
they got purchased by AEW and probably oh 3, 4 years ago now, I'd have to say.
that's about right.
Yeah, they were going out of business or they were having trouble once we were coming back from the pandemic and they couldn't really they weren't doing so well and I guess they just ended up shopping themselves around. Tony Khan bought them and they still exist, but they're just kind of like a subsidiary of AEW and it's not what ROH used to be at all by any
Uh,
stretch. It's basically um it's just not entertaining for by in the slightest. They'll do 3 big pay-per-views a year, something like that. Those are like the good events that they have, but their weekly TV, you have to find it online somewhere. I think they have like a streaming service for only them. And it's not worth it in my eyes because it's not a very good product and it's not worth pouring money into.
I
That's just my opinion
you
as a fan. Let
you
me speaking of as a fan.
right. You are not the first one that has told me that about AEW.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. Because I am I am in attendance to my fans.
Right.
They're on my personal page. They're on me and Velvet's fan page. But and what I'm hearing from them is, and they're the ones using the term, they want old school wrestling back. They're sick of the
Yeah.
bump. They're sick of the bump monkeys. Um, they don't like what they're seeing. They want to see an old fashioned Buddy Rose Roddy Piper feud. They want to see wrestling, not jumping
Yes.
from the top of the cage down there and then breaking your back, because
There's
that's
too
not
many
what.
injuries because of yeah. There's too many
Yeah.
injuries because of to in myself as a guy that works for AEW, and I talked about this on a podcast yesterday. Darby Allen, and he basically every time he goes out there and wrestles on TV, if I watch, which and I'll now also see clips online, but I cringe every time I see him taking a bump because he's being thrown off a stage, through tables, onto the steel steps, and it's just to me, it's painful. I don't even know how the guy at 20 something years old is still walking.
um a piece of advice to
Yeah.
all those young wrestlers out there: if the bump doesn't say anything, don't take it.
Yeah.
you know you've got to make everyone count, because you're going to end up like me. And because I broke my neck in the ring, I now have a crack in my second vertebrae. Uh, Vertebrae 3, 4, and 5 in my neck are naturally fused together. I'm on full disability, and it is all because of that one bump, that one accident that happened. And it's guy, guys, gals, if it doesn't make a statement, don't do it. That's not what the fans want anymore. They want to see headlocks. They want to see hammerlocks. They want to see small packages. That in my day, you know, small packages were a finish.
Yeah. And it's like once in a while you'll see him now, but so very rare. You know what I mean? It's not often that it happens. Let's talk a little bit about the injury. It ultimately ended up ending your career when you broke your neck. It was
Yes.
in yeah. So
What happened was there was a young lady in the ring, and I'm not going to mention her name, and she picked me up, and I can't remember whether it was for a body slam, a turnbuckle, or a pile driver, but she picked me up, and there was a wrinkle in the mat. And if you've ever been in the ring, a wrinkle in the mat is bad.
yeah, it could be very it could I wouldn't say deadly, but it could hurt. You can trip and get hurt.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what happened is she
Yeah.
tripped. And when she tripped, she sat down on my head. She did not mean to do this. I mean, she to this day she cries when she sees me, and I love her to death. And oof, I got because the adrenaline was still running. I
Hmm.
finished the match, and I was back in the dressing room, and I was sitting there cooling off because there's no sense in taking a shower when you're hot and sweaty because you're going to come back out and you're going to be hot and sweaty. So I went to bend over to unlace my boot, and I felt something. And like every other wrestler in the world, I sat back up and I went, all right, which muscle have I pulled now? I sat there a little bit longer. And the last thing that I remember before, well, one of the first things that I remember is when I remember bending over to unlace my boot. And then the only thing I remember is I'm on a gurney and I've got, four of the boys are out there. The EMTs are there. They're putting me in an ambulance. Boom, it's cut off. I don't, and to this day, I don't remember. The next thing I remember, I was in the hospital. They're telling me you broke your neck, blah, 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 blah. And I went back to Moolah's. I don't know how I got there. I
Hmm.
don't I don't remember. I don't know if I took a plane, a train, or an automobile. And I got there and I don't know how long I was there before this snippet comes in line. I mean, I have some major blackouts. I'm not talking about 30 seconds, I'm talking days. And Moolah
Right.
would get me and take me in the ring and say, take a bump. I'd take a bump. I'd scream to high heaven. She'd take me back to my room. Well, it ended up that there was this money mark in Holland who wanted me to come visit him, and I talked to him on the phone, and I knew I was getting paid. I don't know what the paycheck was, and I made it very clear that we were to have separate motel rooms. Period. No ifs,
Right.
no ands, no buts. I
Right.
was there as a wrestler entertaining a fan. Long story short, number one, I almost broke his wrist because I caught him in my room. I was asleep on the bed and I caught his hand like this and it's right here. And I ended up grabbing it and doing, this. And he kept pushing. I said, I'll break your wrist. Then he says, all right, what's your price? Everybody has their price. I've got money. I'm a duke. I got women falling at my feet. And I looked at him. I said, Ernie, your feet and your money don't mean nothing to me. And my price is love. Uh, then he asked me, well, what are you going to do if I take your passport? And I said, after I beat the living hell out of you, After I beat the living hell out of you, I'm going to go to the American consulate and I'm going to press every charge on you that I can possibly do. I only had 3 days left, thank God. Um, I I think I blew out the flywheel in his Porsche.
Oh, wow.
We were on the autobahn. Now I learned how to drive a stick when it was 3 on the column. I know how to drive a stick, but I couldn't hit second gear without grinding the gears. I don't know what was wrong with me. Um, and then I got back, and Moolah told me, "All right, you owe me X amount of dollars for rent. I want your brown outfit, your yellow outfit, and your white outfit, and I want the boots to match them, and that'll pay the $600 rent you owe me."
Wow.
I had that more than that in one outfit.
Hmm.
Um, and she said, "You need to find a job because you're not living here for free." I packed my things in my Chevy Malibu. I left there with $20 in my pocket. I pawned some things, sold some rings, sold some jewelry, met my first husband, and had my son. And then I met my second husband, my soulmate, my best friend, the little brother I couldn't kill. And a lot of people ask me, "Well, don't you regret breaking your neck?" I said, "No." I said, "Because if I hadn't broke my neck, I would have went on with wrestling. I wouldn't have met my first husband in South Carolina, which led me to Franklin, Virginia, where I met my second husband, Jack.
Right.
Now, I've got my son who put himself through college. He is an attorney at law.
That's awesome.
And I walk sideways through the door when I start talking about him because my head gets this big. And if I had not broke my neck, I would not have met my first husband, which means I wouldn't have had my son. I wouldn't have been in Franklin, Virginia, and I wouldn't have met Jack. And I would not trade those two people in my life for all the tea in China.
Was there ever a chance of recovery and maybe you coming back, or was it just
I,
once it happened, you
I,
just weren't interested?
uh, well, there's right. Like I said, about a few years ago, I dropped an elbow,
Yeah.
and just lately, like I told you earlier, they found the crack. The crack is still very evident in my neck,
Right.
and the three vertebrae behind it, underneath it, are fused together. So no,
Right.
because it may not be the first time I land, it may not be the second time, but I could very well die from taking a bump. You know,
Jeez. Yeah.
well, the way I was trained, and thank God for Sandy Barr, he he knew which muscles needed to be taken care of for wrestling, and he did something that had us do something that was called the Harvard Bridge. And what it is you lay flat on the ground, you roll up your neck and turn it into a bridge
Hmm.
with your hands on your stomach. And I truly believe to this day, if I and I kept doing them even after Sandy wasn't there to watch. I believe to this day, if it had not been for those Harvard bridges and the shape that I was in, I very well could have died or been paralyzed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still got my son and I've got my memories of Jack.
We have some great memories after that, so I guess it worked out.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah, I do. I really do. I have speaking of memories, um little snippet. I'm in the process of writing another book,
Excellent.
and it's not going to be the novel like the little novelette this one is. This is this is going to be about my whole life, including wrestling.
Okay.
And everybody, keep your eye on my Facebook page because number one, that's where I'm going to announce when the book is ready. Number two, that's where I put my jewelry and my snowflakes. You know, so I need y'all to find me at Facebook, and it's Vicky Otis, VICKI OT as in Tom IS, and I should be at the top of the page.
Yeah, we'll definitely
Um,
have to have you back once that's when that book comes out and stuff, and we'll have to
oh
talk
yeah.
about it and promote it.
Well, and to give everybody an idea of the jewelry I make, this choker,
Yep.
I made that. I made that. Here's another piece.
Nice.
One of my favorites, and that's bone. What I make it, that's real turquoise, and that's real bone,
Oh wow.
buffalo bone. And then I found these pieces, and I'm always looking for something different to do, and I'm doing this.
Oh wow. That's nice.
Right, and it's
Yeah.
all crystals and glass. So find me on Facebook.
Great. Great. Do you have anything appearances or conventions or anything like that? Are you making anything
Uh,
stuff like
I'm
that coming
I'm
up?
I'm possibly going to the gathering. I'm working
Okay.
on it right now. And I'm working with oh Lord, I can't remember his name. Name Mike something. I just did. Anyway, I'm working with a person who is starting to send me names, phone numbers to the different WrestleCons and all that.
Okay.
So I'm more than likely, and like I said, all you got to do is watch my personal Facebook page. If I will advertise it there.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to say thank you for joining me here today. I really appreciate you coming in, and like I said, we'll have to have you back soon when, especially when the book comes out.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I'd more than welcome another chance to come on.
All right. Thank you.
So